Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Scotch Malt Whisky Society's first Friday pub session for February. I'm Richard Gosselin. I'm the editor of the Society's members magazine, Unfiltered. And as usual, I will be your pub landlord tonight. So I hope you're all doing well. You made it through January, a fairly bleak January, I think we can all agree, but hopefully you got a burn supper out of it and were able to enjoy that under the circumstances. We're into February. There's a wee bit more light in the evenings. There's just that glimmer of hope that we're coming out of the darkness and things are going to be improving soon. Fingers crossed. And there's maybe a wee bit of romance in the air. February, of course, is the month of St. Valentine's Day. And here at the Society, we're doing our best to lift the spirits and bring a wee bit of romance into your lives with a packed pub session tonight. Let's see what we've got. We've got relaxing, soothing, beautiful music from Esther Swift. She's a musician from the Borders. She's a harpist and a composer and a singer-songwriter, and she'll be joining us very shortly. We're going to have whiskey-inspired perfume with Imogen Russin-Taylor, who's made a transition from the world of whiskey to setting up Scotland's first perfume house called Kingdom Scotland. We'll be hearing from a globe-trotting society member who, wherever he goes, he tries different whiskies. So we'll be checking in with him to find out about his international whiskey adventures. We'll also hear from Society Executive Head Chef James Freeman. We usually check in with him to see what he's up to. And this month, he is bringing you a Society St. Valentine's home dining experience, which is absolutely fantastic. So we'll hear from James about that and also some tips about bringing some romance to your home dining experience. And we'll have a whiskey cocktail from Kyle at Queen Street, which he calls Cupid's Whiskey Sour. So all that to check out, plus some seductive society single malts from the February outturn, which we will be sampling as well. So all that, plus, of course, our whiskey-soaked pub quiz coming up later this evening. So get involved. As always, give us a shout out. Let us know where you are. Let us know what you're drinking. Let us know how you're doing. Get involved and pass on a comment, and we'll say hello. So we've got all that. But first of all, let me welcome my co-host for the evening, a familiar face at this point to everyone at the Society, Mads Schmall, social media guru and a near neighbour of mine in Glasgow. So nice to see you, Mads. How are you doing?
Good, Richard. It's nice to be on the pod. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome, Mads. Always a pleasure. We'll be hearing much more from Mads and we'll be tasting some whiskey. So great to have Mads on board. But without further ado, let us move on and introduce Esther Swift, musician from, I think, from the Borders originally, Esther?
Yes, indeed, from Peebles.
Right, okay. And now in Edinburgh?
Yeah, down in Leith, near one of your residents, I believe.
Near the vaults?
Near the vaults, yeah.
Very good. And a bit of a whiskey fan as well, Esther?
Indeed, yeah. I have to say I'm missing my whiskey tastings in Edinburgh.
Well, hopefully we'll get you back before too long. Esther, we've got two sets from you tonight with your harp and some singing. So we'll just throw it over to you to soothe our souls with some beautiful music. So take it away.
Oh, thanks so much, Richard. And good evening, everyone. So nice to be here. I'm going to start with a song which is called Blue. And I wrote this on New Year's Day when I was coming back from the island of Lewis a couple of years ago. And it was very cold and very beautiful. So this is about embracing the cold, I suppose. It's called Blue. Tips mid-century old, weather flicker of fire then met blue, and candy flows to clouds rise to the occasion. Early fishers of all species set about, webs of snow are creeping into nothing blue, soft blue found in dreams. Blue, nothing but blue, time old blue. Waiting, wanting hand of mountains, the surest thing on earth, yet so fragile, so vulnerable, bravely holding earth, their time sky, bravely holding earth, their time sky, bravely holding earth, their time and sky. Nothing but blue, soft blue found in dreams. Ooh, nothing but blue, time old blue. Nothing but blue, soft blue found in dreams. Blue, nothing but blue, time old blue, time old blue, time old blue. Nothing but blue, soft found in dreams. Blue, nothing but blue, time old blue. Gonna do an instrumental track now, which is by a fellow harpist from the Borders, Savorna Stevenson, and this is called the Tweed. There's a river that runs all the way through the Borders called the River Tweed. And one of my favourite pieces of music. And back to Richard.
Absolutely fantastic, Esther. What a wonderful way to start the evening. Getting us all in the right frame of mind, I think.
I
Oh,
don't think
thanks
I
so
was.
much. I was thinking there earlier, Richard, when you said it was recently Burns Day. Maybe I'll have to close with a Burns song.
It's still valid. I mean, Burns is valid at any time, but absolutely,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
any time is good. And we're close enough to the 25th of January that absolutely, if you've got something up your sleeve, we would be delighted to hear it. But brilliant start, Esther. Thank you very much for that.
Thanks.
And we'll come back for a wee bit more later on. So thank you.
Thanks.
Has that got you in the mood, Mads? You feeling chilled out?
I am. I don't think I was ready for February until that moment just there.
Really nice, huh? Just perfect vibe. But we've got whiskey to improve the
Mhm.
vibe as well. We've got February Outturn, which is not coming out until next Friday. Usually it's the first Friday of the month, of course. But on this occasion, we're pushing it back to next Friday. But we've managed to get a wee sneak peek, Mads, right? So
Indeed,
what we got in our glass? Do you want to just tell us what we're tasting tonight?
Yeah, we've got 24.146, which is hoarding for cold winter days. So it's Speyside whiskey from a well-known distillery, and it's 12 years old. Initial cask ex Oloroso butt, or butts, I should say. Final cask first fill ex Oloroso hogshead. That's delightful.
Yes, and it's a very interesting one, this, because it's from a kind of small batch experiment that the spirits team have been working on, and they basically they married some Oloroso butts, and then put that marriage, that vatting, into separate casks to see kind of what different direction they would take. So there's an additional maturation, but it's all Oloroso cask maturation. So it's a full term sherry maturation. And I mean, you can see from the color of that just how gloriously dark it is. And it's, if you're into sherry whiskies, this is an absolute belter of a dram, I would say. What are you getting from
Oh,
it, Mads?
I mean, for me, on the nose, loads of stewed fruit, vanilla, caramelized pear tarts, and a hint of Christmas. I normally get quite a lot of Christmas in kind of sherry drams. This one, it's not quite as heavy. It's very approachable. It's sweet. It's lovely. It's mellow. It's everything you could want and more.
Yeah, it's a big bruiser of a sherry dram. We should say that there's more to come from this series of kind of small batch experiments. We've got this coming out in February's Outturn, and there's more ahead. So it's definitely worth looking out for any sherry fans out there. It's an absolute beauty. But the February Outturn, Mads, it's all about kind of falling in love with flavor. It's we're trying to capture the romance of whiskey, and I think the point of the society is there's whiskey out there for everyone, right? It's not just if you're a sherry fan or if you're a peat freak. We've got all the flavor profiles, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. The flavor profile that you initially think is the one that you should like is usually not the one you end up liking. For example, when I started with the society almost about 2 years, actually 2 years ago, I remember thinking, oh, it'll definitely be deep rich and dried fruits. Like on paper, that sounds like the whiskey flavor profile for me. And then I really struggled with sherry drams initially because I just got quite a lot of cabbage from them, and it wasn't always comfortable for me. And I actually gravitated towards peat, which is something that I didn't enjoy at all before I came to the society. So it's weird how you kind of come around and discover something that you might never have tried.
Yeah, and I think the point is to kind of approach with an open mind, because you might think, okay, this is for me. Peated whiskey is not for me, but you've got to just give it a chance. And there's definitely a dram there for you. Kevin is asking, what's the name and number again? That was 24146, and it's very suitably named. It's called Hoarding for Cold Winter Days. So never a more appropriate bottle name than for a Dreich night in Glasgow. A bit of that. So really fantastic stuff. But we've also got a new issue of Unfiltered out today, Mads, and you've been working hard on your contributions to the magazine, and you've been looking into how we've been, society members obviously haven't been able to go to members' rooms. They've not been able to get together at tastings in person, but they've still been able to kind of forge friendships and make relationships even online. So tell us a wee bit about the feature that you've put together for Unfiltered.
Oh, well, I will. I have to give a shout out to Tina as well, who I actually spoke with on the phone a wee week ago. So hi, Tina. It's nice to see you here. But I am just constantly impressed by the way our members come together. Even before the pandemic, one of the best parts of my job was getting to meet members at festivals. So that's changed over the last year because obviously that's not really possible. But our members are really ingenious, and they've come up with loads of ways to share whiskies. And what I've realized is there's actually more ways the whiskey brings us together than any of us could have ever imagined. So in kind of looking and trying to find these stories, I went to our Twitter community, and I spoke with Alistair from Skipton and Paolo from Italy, who actually met over Twitter and started sending each other drams, so drample swaps. And what's really interesting is they've not met, but they continue to send, not sell, they continue to swap these drams. And they have similar tastes, which is how Paolo kind of got into touch with Alistair in the first place. So Paolo's actually tried some new drams because Alistair's recommended them, and they've had similar tastes. And equally, we had members that actually ended up meeting in the London members' room because they all realised that they had never been to a members' room. So they, on the hottest day of the year, they went to Greville Street in the brief time that it was allowed and all met up for a dram, which just shows, sharing whiskey and coming together. It's what society is about, but it's also just a wonderful way to come together.
Well said, and it's a really nice piece. So Unfiltered's out today. Check out Mads' piece about how even in these strange times, we're still bringing people together. We're bringing people together tonight and doing what we can to kind of bring some cheer and entertainment to our members, even if they can't come to physical tastings or come to our members' rooms. So all good stuff. So next week, Mads, the outturn is out. Is that the latest?
Friday at 2 p.m. next week, and that's 2 p.m. UK time.
Right, good stuff. And it's I have to say, it's a fantastic outturn with a real range of whiskies, including some heavily peated offerings, which we don't always see in each outturn. They're fairly hard to come by, but there's a couple of heavily peated big beasts for those of you that veer towards that end of the spectrum, but something for everyone in between as well. So lots to look out for, and the 24, absolutely sensational. Good stuff.
You can read on it. You can read the whole outturn online just now, actually, so you can kind of plan your choices now.
Yes, good idea. Get the pen and paper out.
Exactly.
Okay. We are very fortunate to also be joined by someone else you spoke to for Unfiltered this month, Mads, but we have Imogen Russin-Taylor, who has made a very interesting journey from working in the whiskey world to setting up Scotland's first ever perfume house called Kingdom Scotland. Imogen, thank you so much for joining us. It's very nice to see you. And, just tell us, how do you go from whiskey to perfume? Is it all just about great scents and wonderful aromas and enjoying that whole experience?
It's not such a far transition, I didn't find. I haven't said hello, everybody. Hello. I worked in the whiskey industry for over 10 years, 15 years, and I just saw the parallels between whiskey and perfume. I worked with LVMH brands, so Glenmorangie and Ardbeg most recently, and they obviously have the whole portfolio of perfume brands and fashion brands, as well as spirits and wines. And it was at that point that I saw this huge similarity between the worlds of perfume and whiskey. I mean, the similarities come from the way you select the ingredients, the way you distill products as well, but right through to the way you appreciate the product at the end of the process, with nosing. Obviously, you don't taste perfume, but there's so many similarities with the nosings of whiskies and perfumes.
I'd imagine as well there's quite a few commonalities in language, in the language used to describe whiskey and the language that's used to describe perfume. Is that the case?
There certainly is. And I think at the Scotch Malt Whisky Society, the way you talk about whiskies and the way you always have right from the beginning of your society, which is much more evocative, delving into the emotion that you feel when you smell something quite evocative, is very akin to the world of perfume, because scent is so part of our memory, and it really is. It's a very personal experience. It's a very personal expression. And I think in this isolated time that we all have in lockdown, we perhaps become more associated with that, and we can more see how scent is part of our our sense of self. And that was one of the things that really started to evoke this passion in me about scent, and how could one express scent. So there's different ways, and I think perfume is a really interesting way to evoke a sense of place, and that's what I set out to do with perfume. But it was very much rooted in the world of whiskey, and what you do at the Scotch Malt Whisky Society, and the passion you bring and the words you bring to the way you talk about every single expression inspired me, definitely.
Imogen, I'm intrigued by you. All your scents are unisex, right? You don't create scents for women and for men. Whatever you create, you say it's unisex. So tell me a wee bit about that. I'm intrigued by the idea of men and women wearing the same scent, but I suppose it reacts differently depending on who's wearing it or what sex they are.
Yeah, it definitely does react differently on our skin. It depends on sex and what you've eaten and the level of moisture in your skin and the chemistry of your skin. But going further back from that, scent was never created for men or for women. That's quite a modern phenomenon. I would say that's in the last 50 years. Marketeers have created this scenario where this is for women and rose is for women, for example, pink scents are for women, and these darker scents are for men. That was never the case when the whole world of scent, scent's been around for so long. It's from Egyptian times, it's from Roman times, and even, you go back to Edwardian times in the UK, and a very sort of refined gentleman would have worn rose, which in this day and age is seen in the female domain. So I decided to go back to the point where scents and perfumes are created, in the modern world, it's probably like 200 years ago. And I just thought, you choose the scent you like. You choose the scent that resonates with you, which is very similar to the ethos of what you do. You choose a scent that speaks to you, that you enjoy, and perhaps has a memory for you. So I decided to do everything as gender inclusive, gender neutral. You just choose the scent that's right for you.
And I'm intrigued as well. Your perfume, you talk about the sense of self being in your perfume. And with all of your experience in whiskey, how does that come out in your perfumes?
I suppose I do approach perfume, one would say, as art in some ways. So everybody has a unique sense of smell because our sense of smell is related to our own personal memory. There is a collective cultural memory, which is how we are able to communicate and attach memory and significance to scent. But for me, I wanted to bring to life things that I love. So I love Scotland. I have Scottish heritage. I've spent most of my childhood here. I now live here with my family, and I wanted to bring that to life. I did geology at university, and I wanted to bring that love of landscape and terroir to life. I've worked for many years, over 12 years in the whiskey industry, and I wanted to bring that to life. So my perfumes are very much a love of things that are really important to me. So that is a sense of self. And collectively, if people enjoy that, it's a story I want to tell in scent. And I hope that it resonates with other people as well.
We've got a question there from Graham. Has anyone ever tried using whiskey as a scent? But I mean, your perfumes do have that hint of whiskey. You've spoken about maybe having a slight, kind of west coast of Scotland scent to it, maybe just the slightest hint of peat or that kind of ester fruitiness to your whiskies. Could we just dab a bit of single malt on our neck, and that would do us?
I've played with this a lot. I try to do it in a more sort of complex, multidimensional way. You obviously could recreate a scent of a whiskey in a perfume, and many people have actually done that. There was a Joe Malone whiskey scent. There's been numerous whiskey scents that have kicked about. But I decided to use that inspiration, that appreciating a fine whiskey is so multifaceted. It takes so many of the different senses and memory into context. So my perfumes are really, really complex and multifaceted. So I have one called Metamorphic, and it has a hint. Metamorphic is the most complex geology, and it's woven through the Scottish landscape and very much on the West Coast. So being on the West Coast, I decided to weave into it an aspect of island malt. So it has a peaty classic aspect within it, but it's so many more. It's multifaceted. It's almost 3, even 4-dimensional, because it takes the concept of time within it, and it almost has a texture and smell. You'll understand that as whiskey lovers, how whiskey can have a sense of texture as well as its scent profile, as can perfumes. So that's the thing. It's quite a difficult thing. So I weave whiskey into my perfumes, but it's not just, this is a replication of a whiskey. There's the beauty of the appreciation of whiskey woven into my perfumes.
Fantastic. Well, there is lots more to read. Mads has already spoken to you and put together a great feature for the new issue of Unfiltered, out today. I'm always trying to plug it, but lots to read in there, plus a podcast, because she captured the conversation. So really a good chance to dive a little bit deeper into your world of perfume making and your background in whiskey, Imogen. We should also give a shout out to a great competition for UK members only, I'm afraid. But if you're in the UK and you're a member of the Society, there's a brilliant competition to win a bottle of Imogen's perfume. So check out Unfiltered for that. And of course, it's a unisex perfume, so a unisex scent, I should probably say. But so it's just as valid for men as for women. So check out Unfiltered for all that. Imogen, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Fascinating stuff, and look forward to seeing you in the future when we can.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Great stuff. That's a wee bit of romantic mood as well, Mads, isn't it? A nice wee scent. And I like that idea. I read in the article that even if we're sitting at home, we're not going out anywhere. We're not going out to restaurants. We're not going out to bars or members' rooms. But even if we're sitting at home, a wee spray of perfume, a wee spray of scent can still help to kind of lift the mood and just kind of bring you into a better place, right?
Absolutely. It's just a lift. And I think one of the really interesting things that came out of speaking with Imogen is she said that it's not just perfume or scent, but actually home scent as well. So things like scented candles and reed diffusers have become incredibly popular over the last year, which is a connection I never thought of. But when you think about it, it makes sense.
Yeah, it's that kind of home comfort, isn't it? Or just giving yourself a little feeling like you're making things better, you're improving your situation in whatever way you can. And we all need a bit of that right now. Okay, great stuff from Imogen. Let's move on. We would like to catch up with James Freeman, who's the executive head chef at the SMWS. He has been cooking up a storm for members and others with his home dining experience. I've been fortunate to try a couple of them, and they have been absolutely brilliant and bringing a wee bit of, just a really nice meal within the home environment. James can't be with us tonight, but I caught up with him earlier and asked him about the Valentine's Day home dining experience. So let's hear from James. Here he is. Delighted to be joined by James Freeman, Executive Head Chef at the SMWS. Couldn't join us live on the pub session because he's got a very special date that he's celebrating on Friday. I won't say any more than that. James, we've got a new dining kit coming out. So what have we got in store for February and for the month of romance? Tell us all about it.
Well, yeah, we've done a special Valentine's package for you for the next couple of weeks. So we tried to make it just a little bit more fine dining-y, just a little bit more structured and something to sort of impress your partner with. Really, really simple to do again, so you're not going to get hot and sweaty in the kitchen. I think we've got a cocktail in this week. A cocktail with lemon and whiskey creme de cassis. So that's a new addition. We've got some dried raspberries and candied lemon in there. So yeah, it's all really, really exciting and very nice.
So that's for people who are forking out for the home dining experience.
Yeah.
You've done all the work for them already.
Yeah.
They just need to heat it and plate it up, and they immediately feel like a pro. If you're cooking for yourself this Valentine's Day or any time, and you're trying to bring a bit of romance into the kitchen, what would you say? What would your tips be, James?
Well, it should be an easy thing to do. I mean, cooking and romance are quite closely connected. You see it all over TV at the moment. But the reward hormones apparently for cooking and eating are the same as romance and lovemaking, so it should make it easy. What I would say about cooking at home is, again, just keep it simple. If you've never made a beef Wellington before, don't choose Valentine's evening for the day to try. You don't want to end up hot, sweaty, and frustrated when you're serving the meal. So just keep it simple and sort of ideas. I mean, obviously you've got the kind of oysters to start. I think it's really nice to have something to share. So something at the table that you share. You could do something like a bowl of mussels mariniere, or even better, I thought would be, I don't know if anybody's ever done this, where you grill the mussels in the shell. So you cook them, you put them back in their shell, and then you gratinate them with like a Parmesan sort of breadcrumb, and you just slide that under the grill for a minute or two until it's bubbling and hot. Really beautiful dish. And then you just have the little shells on the table and you just share that. Again, with the main courses, well, steak and red wine sauce is a really obvious one. I don't know if anybody's ever made Hasselback potatoes. That's the potatoes, you sort of roast them whole, you sort of cut lines in them and put a bit of butter and roast them, and they look absolutely beautiful. A red wine sauce, one thing I would say, if you're making a red wine sauce, don't make it with rubbish wine. Use a whole bottle for 2 people of really good red wine, and you'll end up with an absolutely beautiful red wine sauce. Other thoughts that sort of occurred to me is, if you've got a really nice casserole dish, it'd be really nice to have that in the center of the table. You just bring the empty plates to the table. People sort of you know, you can sort of help yourselves. It just brings that sort of sharing element in, which, you know, brings a little bit of romance to the table. Something like a coq au vin, or, you know, a beef casserole. Even something like a seafood paella. If you've got a nice paella pan, again, it can go in the center of the table. You sort of share and help yourself. What you want to do, obviously, is just set the atmosphere a little bit. You want candles, you want tablecloths, you want nice wine glasses, nice cutlery, and just make everything nice and easy for yourself as well. Try not to have a mess in the kitchen going on that you're worried about. So just get organized before you start. Pudding wise, I mean, we've done a really nice chocolate cake layered with pistachio. That's going to be shared. That's to be shared at the table as well for home dining this week. Chocolate is always going to be nice. I mean, if you're not good at baking or pastry, then just buy something in. Something really nice after a nice meal as well is just to have some chocolate truffles. You know, don't worry too much about pudding. Just buy some really nice chocolate truffles and maybe have that with a whiskey. You know what I mean? Something. Just keep it simple, keep it easy, and think more about the mood that you're creating than trying to impress with some very technical dish that may or may not work out on the evening.
Good advice. So, you know, maybe lighter things, as you say, to share, lots of sharing and keeping it simple.
Yeah.
Any foods that you would just say stay clear of? They don't spell romance. Just give them a wide berth.
Well, maybe things that are a bit gassy: kale, beans, Brussels sprouts. You know, I wouldn't. I mean, if you're going to cook a steak, just don't have too much meat. Maybe do like a côte de boeuf. That's the big one on the bone. Again, bring it to the table. Just carve it. What I would say is don't overeat, and obviously don't drink too much.
Brilliant. That all sounds like great advice, James. For anyone who's ordered your meal, I'm sure they're going to enjoy it. And obviously, we've got nationwide home delivery now, so it's not just Glasgow and Edinburgh. It's
nationwide now. Yeah, there's some really nice. I think the boys, the guys downstairs, have chosen some really nice whiskies to go with the meal this week. I think it's a real bargain this week. You're getting a cocktail, 3 whiskies. You know, it really is. It's great value at the moment. Great value.
Good stuff. Well, thanks for joining us, James. Enjoy your celebration on Friday night.
Will do, mate.
Always good to see you.
Yeah, and we'll see you soon. Cheers.
Great stuff, as always, courtesy of James Freeman. Can't be with us tonight. He's got a wee birthday celebration, but I'm sworn to secrecy. I'm not going to say how old he is. You can make your own guess. But James was talking, Mads, about the St. Valentine's home dining, and that's available, I think, from the 4th to the 13th of February. But then there's another home dining experience coming up later in the month, right?
Yes, and that's really going to be all about embracing local suppliers and local produce and local meat and fish. So the menu's actually live now. You can take a look at it. There are some beautiful langoustines and spiced venison loin. This is really, I think everyone's been talking about this. We always say it's not one to miss, but don't miss this one because it's going to be really good. And if you haven't ordered Valentine's yet, we still have availability for next week, so you can still order it. And if you're feeling lucky, we're also currently running a competition to win it on the new SMWS Set Home social channels. So you can win not only the whole Valentine's experience, but we're also throwing in a bottle of bubbly, and our friends at Montezuma Chocolates have also added some chocolate to that. So it's a really good prize to win. Competition's only running until Sunday night though. So make sure you head over to our SMWS Set Home channels to enter.
Great stuff. And it's smws.com/home-dining for your home dining orders. Can't recommend it enough. We also, as I think James said there, we've got a cocktail included in this kit. So we thought we'd go over to Kyle at 28 Queen Street to find out more about Cupid's Whiskey Sour for a wee bit more of a romantic cocktail. So let's hear from Kyle.
We're going to be showing you how to do a Cupid's Whiskey Sour today. Nice and simple twist on the classic drink. So, I'm going to use 50ml. This juicy oak vanilla whiskey. Chose this so it's not going to totally overpower the cocktail. We use 50ml. And then instead of the sugars, we're going to be using creme de cassis to add the sweetness. $25ml, and of course, it wouldn't be a sour without any lemon juice, so freshly squeezed lemon juice again, $25ml. There we go. I'm going to put some ice in the rocks first. Ice for the cocktail. Okay. And then we are going to double strain it over the ice. And just to finish, garnish, a slice of lemon and some dehydrated raspberries. There we are, Cupid's Whiskey Sour.
There we go. Cupid's Whiskey Sour. That sounds good. So thank you to Kyle for that, and to Rennie for a wee bit of editing on that video. Much appreciated, as always. Right, Mads, time for the pub quiz. You ready?
Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Usual format, folks. It's 10 questions. It's multiple choice. Give us your shout out in the comments with whatever your guess or your answer is. And we will kick off. Right, let me find the quiz. And Mads, you want to kick us off?
Sure, sounds good.
Take it away.
Question 1. Who played the role of whiskey expert Rory McAllister in the film The Angel's Share? Is it A, Dave Broom, B, Charlie MacLaine, C, Pip Hills, or D, Michael Jackson?
Have you seen The Angel Share, Mads?
No, I haven't. It's on my list. Everyone keeps telling me to watch it, and I haven't.
You know what? I think it's I saw it fairly recently because I think it's on BBC iPlayer right now, and I saw it quite a long time ago, but I rewatched it, and I just was reminded of how good it is. You know, it's a really, really good film. It's a fairly feel-good movie with whiskey at its core, but there's much more to it than that. Oh, wait a minute! The answers are flooding in.
They're flying in, aren't they?
Yeah.
Lots of B's. We've got a C as well. Rennie thinks it's B. Alexandra thinks it's B. John McShane, B. Well, is it?
Well, let's find out.
It is Charlie MacLaine.
Any fun facts about this, Mads, by any chance?
Indeed. So the film is about a mythical cask of malt mill whiskey, a real distillery which is based at Lefroy. It closed in 1962 and was never bottled as a single malt.
Yeah, a truly special dram. And another fun fact is Charlie himself told me that he was only ever meant to have a very small cameo in the movie, but he was so good that the director, Ken Loach, gave him a much bigger part just because he thought Charlie is so good in this role that it went from a kind of walk on, maybe not even having any lines, to having a fairly significant part in the movie just because Charlie was so good. And it's worth watching just for Charlie's performance. It's absolutely brilliant. So recommended to all. Right, I'll take question 2. What was the first distillery to be founded in Dufftown? Was it A, Dufftown? Was it B, Glenfiddich? Was it C, Kinninvie? Or was it D, Mortlach? So we'll give you a wee moment to think about that. I told you that all the questions tonight are whiskey related. We're not veering off into any other territory. So this is one for the whiskey geeks. Ashwant saying Glenfiddich, Ian saying Mortlach. Anyone else having a go? Andy's D, Mortlach. Okay. We've definitely got some whiskey geeks in the house tonight. Anyone else having a go? Let's
I
see.
think that might be it.
Yeah, I think D is the consensus, and the answer is correct. D, Mortlach. Distillery was completed in 1824. One of the famous 7 stills of Dufton, which made it at the time the self-proclaimed whiskey capital of the world. 6 of those distilleries are still operating. Extra points if you can name them. Glenfiddich, Balvenie, Kinninvie, Dufton, Glendullan, and Mortlach. And together, they make up more than 10% of the Scotch whisky industry's total output. So there you go. Lots of whisky coming out of Dufton.
That's a lot of whiskey. Yes. So this is a picture around a nameless distillery. Is it A, Ardbeg, B, Lagavulin, C, Lefroy, Caolila? That's it.
That's all your options.
Yeah, that's all your options.
It sounded like you were ready for another.
I mean, maybe I could have thrown another one in there, but there isn't another one in there to throw. So
would you have got this one, Mads?
I would. I actually was lucky enough to get to visit Islay with the society in my first year, so I got a proper baptism then.
I think it's a wee bit tricky though, because anyone that sails in to Islay on the boat that's going to Port Ellen will see distilleries, but they might look a wee bit similar. So I don't know if it is just as straightforward as you might think. What are we getting?
We're getting lots of C's. So majority seem to think that it's Lefroy.
Okay. Well, in that case, the majority are correct. Give us a fun fact, Matt.
About Lefroy.
Yes.
Actually, how about an Islay fact? So Ardbeg, Lagavulin, and Lefroy are clustered together on the south coast of Islay, and they're known as the Kildalton distilleries, and they're pretty easy to walk and or stumble depending on your state when you're visiting them.
Correct. Very good. Okay. What are the names Porteous and Bobby associated with in distilleries? Is it A, malting barley, B, stills, C, milling machines, or D, washbacks? So, Porteous and Bobby. For anyone who's actually been in person to a distillery in Scotland, they're probably familiar with these names. I'm not going to respond to Graham Fraser's comment, but let's see. Yeah, I think this is an easy one for the whiskey geeks, because it's unmissable when you go to a Scottish distillery that there's going to be one of these things which seems to have been there forever. And the answer is milling machines. And neither of these companies, I don't think, had heard of the concept of what we now know as built-in obsolescence, where you can't update your software anymore, and you've got to basically buy a new computer, or your vacuum cleaner breaks down, your washing machine packs up, and you buy a new one. These guys had no idea, and they built their machines so well that they never needed replaced. And as a result, both companies are defunct for being too successful. And a story that I quite liked about the Porteous Mill is that even when Kilchoman set up on Islay in 2005, brand new distillery, and they managed to source an 80-year-old Porteous milling machine, and it's taken pride of place in the distillery. So yeah, built to last, but not a very good business model because no one ever needed to replace them. So there you go.
No, no.
Mads.
Well, speaking of business, who were the brothers who famously caused a huge crash in the whiskey industry at the end of the 19th century? Is it the Walker brothers, the Grant brothers, the Doig brothers, hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, or the Pattison brothers? So let's see what the answers are on this one. So I think it's a bit of a tricky question.
I thought it might have been the Righteous Brothers, but no.
Graham thinks it's D. No. Ashwant also thinks it's D. Patrick, D. Frank, D. Oh, maybe. Are they
Too
right?
easy this month, Mads. Too easy.
I don't know. Kevin thinks it's C, though.
Okay.
Time to find out.
Time to find out.
It is the Pattison brothers, D. You guys are on fire tonight. And fun fact about this one, as famous for their marketing gimmicks as the pyramid scheme they headed, which eventually crashed, they once had 500 parrots trained to say "Buy Pattison's whiskey," sent out to pub landlords all over the country. It's pretty crazy. And their headquarters are still in Leith today.
Indeed, if you take a walk along Constitution Street, you can still see their opulent headquarters. Not sure what it's used for now, but it was built to their specification back when they were ruling over the whiskey world. But yeah, came to a horrible crash at the time. Okay, question 6. Perfume maker Imogen Russin-Taylor, who we've just heard from, says her perfumes have a note of esters. What aromas would you associate with esters in whiskey? Would it be fruity, smoky, woody, or cereal aromas if you talk about esters in whiskey or in perfume for that matter? So sit with me right in there with fruit.
Tricky one for new whiskey drinkers, I would say, because I knew when I was first new to whiskey, I was like, what? Everyone keeps saying estery. What do they mean? I don't understand.
Yeah. Well, we've got a bit of a mix, but most people seem to be going for A. There's Chesterville on the money with A. Very good. Chesterville's whiskey knowledge is improving all the time. But not everyone's got, it's not a consensus. So the answer, Mads, is fruity.
Fruity.
And esters, I'm reliably informed, emerge during the fermentation process. And they are responsible for bringing those fruity, even the creamy and buttery notes to your whiskey, notably like pineapple and citrus. So esters from the fermentation process, and also in Imogen's perfume, which sounds very nice. Mads.
Who was responsible for the tax on distilled spirits that led to America's whiskey rebellion in the late 18th century? Whiskey history here. Is it A, Alexander Hamilton, B, Elijah Craig, C, George Washington, or D, Thomas Jefferson?
Now that's a tricky one because people think they know about whiskey, but we're delving into whiskey history here, not only in Scotland, but in the United States. Now, as a part American, Mads, maybe you should have known this one.
I should have known this one. I did not know this one. But American history was not my strength in high school. I was better at European history, and I suppose that's not surprising.
Well, we've got a few different answers coming in.
A lot of people seem to think it's A. It is
They would be right.
Alexander Hamilton. So, fun fact about this one, the rebellion led to a move away from rye production for whiskey in Pennsylvania to corn production for bourbon in Kentucky. And we have the full story in Unfiltered. So you
Yes.
can
We're
educate
delving
yourself.
into this in the magazine, and it's a really good read actually, because it's about insurrection, which we're quite familiar with in America. It seems to be an ongoing tradition. You don't have to go back into the late 18th century for examples of insurrection. It seems to be very much a current pastime, and in this case, it did lead to the kind of rise of the bourbon industry over the U.S. whiskey industry. So we've got a nice story about that in the new Unfiltered. Okay. Question 8. What is Scotland's most southerly distillery? Is it A, Annandale, B, Borders, C, Bladnoch, or D, Girvan? So how well do you know your Scottish geography? Annandale, Borders, Bladnoch, or Girvan? Did you know this one, Mads?
I was incorrect in my guess. So I clearly need to brush up on my southern geography, because I would say my northern Scottish geography is pretty good, but my southern
I
could do
think
with a bit of work.
when you go north, it's maybe a bit easier, but when you go south, it's maybe harder to tell exactly which one is more southerly. Where we've got a real mix here. A, B, basically people are all over the place. All over the place. The correct answer is Bladnoch, which is in Wigton, in Dumfries and Galloway, just slightly to the south of Annandale, I think, which is just outside Dumfries, and a beautiful distillery. I had the pleasure of being down there a couple of years ago now. It's been wonderfully restored under Australian ownership and producing great whiskey again, and well worth a visit when you are able to travel. So, Bladnoch. Mads.
Another picture round. So please name this distillery. Is it Glengoyne, Glengrant, Glenkinchie, or Glenmurray?
I like these picture rounds. They're very, very straightforward. I guess you either know it or you don't. But it depends on how well known the distillery is. I would say this is quite an easy one.
Let's see. Well, we've got A, B, and C coming in so far. So, and D. Couple more C's coming in now.
All of them, being quite honest.
All of them.
I guess, it really depends if you've been to the place or not. But this one, I think, probably in terms of its tourist numbers, is way up there because it is, in fact,
Glenkinchie,
which is fairly close to Edinburgh. So it's quite an easy visit from the city. Lovely distillery, Diageo owned, and has recently undergone a fairly extensive facelift. And we would have liked to have visited, not able to do that at the moment. But again, the new issue of Unfiltered, we kind of give you a virtual tour of the new look Glenkinchie. It looks great. I went there before, but definitely worth paying a new visit to see the changes that have taken place. Okay. So last question. What region of India do bottlings from Society Code 134 come from? Is it A, Kerala, B, Tamil Nadu, C, Karnataka, or D, Goa? Tricky one. Well, I don't know.
It is tricky. Well, it depends on your whiskey knowledge. I mean, you did say this quiz is all about whiskey knowledge.
As Rennie says, it's only easy when you know the right answer.
That's true for a lot of things.
So We've got D's coming in mostly. Andy's going for Karnataka C, but Frank, Graham, Ashwant, all going for D. Goa. Okay. Gert also coming in. And Scott. Scott's joining us from Queenstown in Australia. Must be early in there. Good effort.
I would imagine
Scott.
it's quite early, yeah. Good effort.
Very good effort. Queensland, yeah, that's more like it, not Queenstown. Good to see you, mate. Chesterville coming in and getting it wrong. Okay, right. The correct answer is Goa, and I don't think it's any secret that distillery code 134 is Paul John, and the company's based in Karnataka, in Bangalore, but their distillery is in Goa. It's a former Portuguese colony on the west coast of India, obviously with a tropical climate. And the thing that really struck me about this is that the Angel's share in Goa is reckoned to be about 8% per year, whereas in Scotland it's about 2% per year. And we've got a big smoky beast of a whiskey coming out next week in the February outturn from distillery 134, 5 years old, fully matured in Goa. So that's like accelerated maturation right there, and it's heavily peated. So absolutely worth looking out for, because there's some brilliant stuff coming out of that distillery. But don't expect an 18-year-old from Distillery 134, because there'll be nothing left in the cask by the time they come to bottle it. Okay. Right. Done with the pub quiz. Well done, everyone. 7:07 a.m. for Scott Mansfield. Just a tremendous effort joining in from Australia.
That is really, it's Saturday as well. It's Saturday. The weekend.
Brilliant. But someone else who is going above and beyond in terms of their time zone is our society member, David Daly, who is in Dubai, as far as I know.
Morning.
He's rubbing his eyes. We've been keeping him waiting, but we very much appreciate David hanging on into his. Well, I mean, if it's Friday here, then it's more like
it is Saturday
in the Middle East, because you have Friday off and Saturday off. So much appreciated, David, that you're sticking around. Good
evening to you both.
Yeah, good evening to you. Great to see you. David has contributed a brilliant piece for Unfiltered this month about your kind of your whiskey globe trotting, I suppose I should call it. You know, you do a lot. You're based in Dubai, but you obviously do a lot of traveling. You enjoy your whiskey in Dubai, but wherever you go, you like to seek out whatever is being produced in that part of the world. So tell us, David, where you've been and what you've tasted, for better or for worse.
Well, the most recent journey, allowing for what's happening in the world, was to Georgia, to Tbilisi. And there's two distilleries there, which is mentioned in this month's piece in Unfiltered magazine. The Jimshire Distillery, which has three expressions, a brandy aged one, or brandy cask finished one, and two wine finished ones, Tisandali and Saparave. And then there's a smaller one in the south east of the country. But when you go to these countries, if you got the option, and I thankfully do, because I can pretty much work from where I like, the internet's your friend. You can actually do a bit of research and find out what you can pick up in that country. Because given the smaller distilleries from these newer producing countries are going to be taking advantage of their local terroir. You're not going to be having necessarily the same start of life, which is ex-bourbon casks, which are so prolific in the more mature markets. So you're more likely to get local oak. So you do get a nicer variance in flavors. And also it gives you something just to look forward to. Just to give you an example of what you can be thinking about from a travel point of view. There's a cycling holiday I've always wanted to do, and it is on the list. Fly into Helsinki, pick up bikes, take the ferry across to Tallinn. In Finland, you got Terrapinelli, beautiful stuff. Estonia now has its own whiskey if you get into Tallinn. So while you're there, taking in the sights, doing a bit of work as I would, pop down to the distillery. and Estonia's one is, what's the name of it again? Is the Mo Distillery. And from there, look, if you take 7-8 days, you can get down to Riga. They've got a whiskey which I think has been done by Balsams, which is a traditional liqueur. Then on to Lithuania. They have one as well, which I cannot pronounce at all. There's also in Europe, for you guys, just around the corner, Appenzeller up in the northeast of Switzerland. There's a hiking holiday you can do. There's a distillery, there's lots of them in Switzerland. There's one which takes in 26 different huts you can visit as part of a 7-8 day hiking holiday, and each one has a different type of barrel, which while you're there, you can get a whiskey from that. You can also get a miniature, so you can actually collect the whole thing. So from a touring point of view, you can have a nice, healthy, engaging tour. That's what I try to do with these things. And at the same time, you can marry that with whiskey experiences, which you won't otherwise have got.
Brilliant. David, do we have anything to be worried about in Scotland? Are any of these countries actually producing something where you think, oh, you know what? This is some serious competition?
If I look at going back to the first article I wrote for you guys on the whiskey nights that we do here, and we have 11 groups. In the group I'm in, the main one, we've had whiskeys from 23 countries, and the one which has won most for its amount of times it's turned up is Denmark. Stauning, Aero. Aero's a small little island, everything on it organic. It's quite Bruichladdich, or Waterford Distillery even. Stauning I didn't know a lot about until they appeared. Fantastic stuff, really, really good whiskies. What else is worth looking out for? Countries you don't think about. Fiji produce whiskey. It's called Regal. It's a bit rich, a bit rummy, but if they put a bit of attention into it, again, keep an eye out for that. What's coming out of Tasmania? Now, Tasmania is really, if anything, something Scotland should be able to keeping an eye on, purely because climate-wise, it's extremely similar. And because they only legally were allowed to start making whiskey again, and I'm going to be corrected here, I think it was in the early 2000s, they're only getting back into it. But if you look at the likes of Hellier's Road, who else is down there? Lark, they're knocking out really, really good things. And they've got the advantage of not being held back, and I mean this well, by heritage. There's a lot to be said for being able to draw on amazing amounts of heritage. There's a lot for being quite boutiquey. I mean, just see what's happening in England with the lakes, where you've got that chap, I can't remember his name, who comes out of Macallan, what's going on in the Peak District with Forest, Cotswolds. It's just remarkable stuff. And just the other night this week, while I was actually tasting some Scottish malt whiskey, 30-year-olds, which was stunning, I had my first ever Dartmoor, which I didn't even know existed. That was good. So you have no excuse from an experience point of view when you're traveling not to use the internet and find out what's happening. Get tasters.
Well, it sounds like a great way. If you're going anywhere, then explore the local drink, but explore what they're doing in the whiskey world. Just a quick question from Graham here. He says, how many of these international distilleries you're talking about are malt distilleries, or are they using different kinds of grains, all kinds of weird and wonderful grains?
It's a mix. It'll purely depend on probably what's available there. There are, I don't know, we up to 50,000 different whiskies globally now. I mean, the numbers are insane, and there's more and more countries getting into it. Think about Ireland, where I'm from. You go back to the 90s, I think we were down to 4. We're at 30 something now, and popping up. There's an awful lot more experimentation. In the same way, what we saw many years ago with micro breweries, we're now seeing, I think, micro distilleries, and it's been happening for a while, but we're only really waking up to it. And they're playing with different grains, which is great. Different strains. I know in America, certainly with the bourbons, there's an awful lot more emphasis placed on which particular strain they've used, and that's certainly part of the communication that they are using. So it's a huge amount. There's a wonderful world out there to explore, and when you travel, take advantage of it and do it.
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
The Danish names again, Kevin's asking for. Can you give us
one
those
of them
again?
is Aero, A-E-R-O. It's a small island. Everything comes from that island. It's completely organic. And the other one was Stauning, S-T-A-U-N-I-N-G, which I think you can actually buy in the UK. I've had a few of them now, in particular the Chaos, KAOS, remarkable. It won a Whiskey of the Night. Again, if you go back to the original article I wrote, it just talks how that works. Wonderful, magical stuff.
And I should say the society's done a bottling from Denmark, and we've done a couple of bottlings from Sweden now, obviously India. We're spreading our wings as well in terms of kind of international whiskies. Obviously, for us to bottle it, it's got to be good stuff. We're not putting anything in a bottle unless it deserves to be there. But I mean, you're very kind as well, David, because I think maybe the whiskey from Indonesia, from Bali, you weren't so keen on, but you're still being kind about it, which I like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we want more experiences. I'm hoping to go hiking in the next year or two to Bhutan. They do a whiskey. Now, it's not a full Bhutanese whiskey. It does have a Scottish element within the blend, but that's fantastic. I mean, this is, I think, the only country in the world which has a negative carbon footprint. So thinking about how unspoiled that place is from an environmental point of view, what's that whiskey going to taste like? Now, sadly, I haven't managed to get my hands on it yet, but when I get up to Thimphu and go hiking, I very much intend to get a bottle of it.
Well, let me know how it is. I was fortunate to go to Bhutan a few years ago, but I don't remember drinking any whiskey. I remember drinking some pretty strange moonshine stuff, but I don't think it qualified as whiskey. But let me know how you got on.
Yes,
David,
of course.
It's been brilliant to catch up with you. Loads of interest in the kind of international whiskey scene. I recommend that everyone checks out Unfiltered and reads David's article. Some great insights into these different whiskies from his travel around the world, and always a pleasure to read his stories in Unfiltered. So, David, really appreciate you staying up late in Dubai. Thanks for taking part and for contributing to Unfiltered and for being a fantastic member. So, cheers to you.
Have a good night. Great to speak with you.
Thanks very much. Great stuff. Right, Mads, we are ready to wind down again. We're going to head back to Edinburgh to catch up with Esther for her second set of the evening. Esther, you all set?
I am. Yeah, good to go. I've been really enjoying the chat. I've learned a lot. It's nice to learn about my namesake as well, that I mean fruity.
I hadn't thought about that. Well, you could get together with someone called Pete, and then it'd be Pete and Estery.
Yeah, perfect.
Right, enough of that.
Oh, thanks so much to Richard for putting me on. It's been really nice to be a part of tonight, and thanks for sticking about. I'm going to play an instrumental track, then I'm going to play a Tom Waits song, and then I'm going to finish off with a Burns song, which I'm sure you will recognise. They hung a sign up in our town. If you live it up, you won't live it down. So she left Monterio sun, just like a bullet leaves a gun. With her charcoal eyes and Monroe hips, she took that California trip. Oh, the moon was gold, her hair like wind. She said, don't look back, just come on, Jim. Whoa, you've got to hold on, hold on. Oh, you gotta hold on, take a hand. I'm standing right here, you gotta hold on. Well, he gave her a dime store watch, a hand ring made from a spoon. Everybody's looking for someone to blame. When you share my bed, you share my name. go ahead and call the cops. You don't mean nice girls in coffee shops. She said, baby, I still love you. Well, sometimes there's nothing left to do. Oh, you've got to hold on. Oh, you gotta hold on. Taking my hand, I'm standing right here. You gotta hold on. Down by the riverside motel, it's 10 below and falling by the 99-cent store. She closed her eyes and started swaying. Oh, it's so hard to dance that way when it's cold and there's no music. Oh, your old hometown so far away, but inside your head there's a record playing. Oh, you've got to hold on, hold on. Oh, you gotta hold on. Taking my hand, I'm standing right here. You gotta hold on. You gotta hold on, hold on. Oh, you gotta hold on. Taking my hand, I'm standing right here. You gotta hold on. You gotta hold on, hold on. Oh, you gotta hold on. Taking my hand, I'm standing right here. You gotta hold on. You gotta hold on, hold on. Oh, you gotta hold on. Taking my hand, I'm standing right here. You gotta hold on. You gotta hold on. You gotta hold on. You gotta hold on. Now I hope you'll sing along with me if you know this next one. Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought in mind? Should old acquaintance be forgot for a hard hindsight? For a hard hindsight, my Joe, for hard hindsight, we'll take a cup of kindness yet for a hard hindsight. was my cat in the background.
A lovely way to finish. Esther, that was spectacular. Just beautiful selection of music. Love the Tom Waits. And then to finish off with that version of Auld Lang Syne, which I think is better than the other version. Yeah, just absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us and bringing a wee bit of cheer to everyone who's tuned in tonight. It's been really special. So much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. Cheers.
Cheers.
Big cheers to Esther. Great stuff. Right. That's us, Mads. We're wrapping up. You had a good time tonight?
Yeah, it was wonderful. I'm ready for February. Totally chill for the weekend. It's grand. It's wonderful.
Well, it helps when you've got a bottle of 24.146 in the house, right?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I think I'll be enjoying that a bit more this weekend. So.
Good stuff. You've earned it. Thanks very much for coming in and co-hosting so well tonight. Great to see you, Mads. And we will see you very soon online.
Yes, there is a virtual tasting actually that's on sale now on the 25th of February. So this one is UK only, but it's going to be really good. We've got the Whiskey Boys and Jamie from Glenturret. So definitely not one to miss. Order your drams now so you don't miss out.
Great stuff. All right. Thanks very much, Mads. Take care. We'll see you.
Thanks, Richard.
Soon. Right. Okay, folks, that's us. Thanks to everyone for taking part tonight. Esther with just the most wonderful music. Imogen Russ and Taylor with their perfume, whiskey and perfume talk. James for his fine dining. Kyle with his cocktail. David Daly, our international whiskey globetrotter. And of course, Mads for co-hosting so well. That's great. New edition of Unfiltered out today. Full of great stuff, as I've been reminding you all night. So check it out, smws.com/unfiltered. New outturn release next Friday, the 12th. Check out the home dining kit with James for some fantastic stuff. And as Mads said, virtual tasting on the 25th of February, which she is going to be hosting with the Whiskey Boys, Jim and Nicola. So thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope you're all keeping safe, keeping well, and keeping the spirits up. Great to see you. And all that remains for me to say is cheers and good night.